My name is Joe Katembo, and today I'll be taking a deep dive into the history of imperialism in the Belgian Congo, also known as the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'll be focusing on how its brutal colonial past continues to shape its crisis-ridden present. My presentation will trace the line of exploitation from the 19th century scramble for Africa right up to the modern-day wars over tech minerals. So, in this journey, I'll begin by setting the global scene of imperialism. Then I'll examine the atrocities of the Congo Free State under King Leopold II. And then we'll analyze the post-colonial era, including the tragedy of independence, the dictatorship of Mobutu, and the ongoing modern crisis in the Eastern Congo. Now, to understand the Belgian Congo, we first must understand the global era of imperialism. This period was a direct outcome of the Industrial Revolution. European factories were expanding rapidly, creating two major needs. First, they required vast amounts of new raw materials, for example, rubber, copper, and cotton. And second, they needed new markets to sell their finished goods. This drive led to intense global rivalries. As you can see on the map on the bottom, major players like Great Britain and France had already established vast empires across the world, apart from Africa. Britain dominated India, profiting from textiles and spices, and secured key access points in the Middle East for oil and strategic control. France colonized much of Southeast Asia, extracting resources like rubber and rice. European nations were generating immense wealth by exploiting these territories. This global economic competition also drove the push to control strategic trade routes, symbolized by the Suez Canal, pictured on the top. This picture here depicts the opening of the Suez Canal, which is one of the most important trade routes in the entire world. So, with Africa being the final massive uncolonized landmass, the competition turned into the scramble for Africa, where nations measured their global power by sheer size and wealth of their overseas empires. Now that we set the scene for the world, let's focus our shift to Africa. This intense competition came to a head in the scramble for Africa, where European powers rapidly divided the entire continent amongst themselves. To give you an idea of the scale, Great Britain claimed huge amounts of land, including South Africa and Egypt. France took most of West Africa, including Algeria, Senegal, and Cameroon. And Germany grabbed territories like German East Africa, which is modern-day Tanzania. This division was formalized at the Berlin Conference in 1884. The key nations involved sat down to set rules for claiming land in Africa. Crucially, no African leaders or representatives were invited to this conference. So, the Europeans treated the continent as a blank map to be carved up, ignoring all existing boundaries, cultures, political structures, and tribal values. This conference effectively replaced treaties and negotiations with a simple rule. If a European nation could establish a military presence and economic control over an area, it could claim it. It was as simple as that. This is the moment when the Congo Basin, an area of nearly 1,000,000 square miles, was formally handed over to one man, King Leopold II of Belgium. Before we take a deep dive into King Leopold in Congo, I want to take a look at this map. I think it does a great job showing the land acquired by European powers. So if we look at the green, we can see the land acquired from France. So they pretty much got Morocco all the way down to the west, like Senegal, and then down to the center through Chad and Central Africa Republic, all the way down to the Congo Brazzaville, and then if we see the pink, we can see England or the Great Britain's territory, which went from Egypt through Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, modern day Zambia, Zimbabwe, and down to South Africa. And then the main one that we're going to focus on is the blue land that's right in the middle. That's the Belgian Congo. And the picture on the right also depicts the Berlin Conference. And as you can see, there are no African representatives. It's just all Europeans. And yeah, that's how they to break up the. Now, looking into the Congo Free State. The territory acquired by King Leopold II was not a Belgian colony. It was his own personal property, which he branded as the Congo Free State. This was a private business venture run by the crown, not by the government entity. Leopold used the famed explorer Henry Morton Stanley to navigate and claim the Congo River basin, and then used that claim to convince other European powers at the Berlin Conference that he was merely engaging in philanthropic activities, bringing his civilization rather, and Christianity to the quote-unquote vacant land, because in his eyes and in the eyes of many European powers, Africa was just vacant land that they can claim, and which they did. But his true goal was clear: to extract as much wealth as possible, primarily through rubber and ivory. The Congo Free State essentially was a giant private plantation, and Leopold was its sole owner, completely immune from international interference. And through this, we'll be talking about the rubber terror. So, one of the main engines of Leopold's profit was rubber, and thanks to Charles Goodyear's invention of vulcanization in 1839, rubber became essential for tires, gaskets, and many industrial machinery, driving up global demand. Leopold created a brutal quota system where local villagers were forced to collect a set amount of rubber from the jungle vines every week. Failure to meet these quotas resulted in immediate and severe punishment. Slide here, the bigger picture on the right, we can see two villagers harvesting rubber, and that's the way they did it. Like they would cut a little bit of tree, and then like the white sap will fall into the bucket, and that's how they harvested the rubber. And then this small picture, the gray picture on the bottom, shows a collection of rubber. And the top picture with all the guys standing there, that's actually ivory. So the Congo has a population of elephants, so they'd also poach them and harvest their ivory through their tusks, and they'll also trade that too. Now, to enforce these quotas that Leopold had, he created the Force Publique, which is a private army run by European officers but comprised of conscripted Africans from different regions. This army was given absolute authority to terrorize the local populations. They used extreme violence to ensure the flow of rubber and ivory continued uninterrupted. This violence included the wholesale of killings and the infamous practice of cutting off hands, used as a perverse form of accounting. The hands were collected to prove that a soldier had used his ammunition to punish a native rather than waste his cartridge on hunting. This system turned the Congo Free State into an engine of relentless brutality. And in this slide, we can see this man is holding a severed hand because he didn't um, collect enough. He didn't collect enough rubber to fulfill his quota. And then the bottom picture here shows the Force Publique, which is the army made up of African conscripts. And they were the ones that did the brutal killings and overlooked everything and made sure that the villagers met their quotas. Now, the human cost is one thing that is really overlooked in this time period of history and in modern history in general. So we cannot discuss the Congo Free State without confronting the staggering human cost. This period is widely recognized as one of the greatest humanitarian disasters in the history of the world. During the 23 years of Leopold's reign, historians estimate the Congo's population declined by between 5 to 10 million people. The causes of this systematic extermination were multifaceted. The death tolls was driven by forced labor, which then led to widespread starvation as people were pulled away from farming their own land. It was also driven by murder by the force publique, stated earlier in the previous slide. And then finally, the displacement, brutality, and lack of sanitation spread disease like wildfire. The entire system was one of systematic extermination for the sole purpose of extracting maximum profits. The horrors of the Congo Free State cannot remain hidden forever. Thanks to the works of activists, the atrocities were exposed to the global public. Key figures included Roger Casement, who was an Irish diplomat whose 1904 report detailed the systematic mutilations of villagers. And then we also have missionary Alice Seeley Harris, who captured shocking photographs that provided irrefutable evidence when she was doing missionary work in the Congo. One of the most haunting images is one of a man named Nsela, who held the severed hand and the foot of his 5-year-old daughter. Yeah, 5-year-old daughter, Bowali. She was killed by the force publique after Nsela failed to meet his rubber quota. And this is pictured here as the background of this slide. And here we see Nsela looking immensely at the severed foot and hand of his 5-year-old daughter, all because he failed to meet his quota. This stark, undeniable evidence fueled the Congo Reform Association, a major global human rights campaign that forced the Belgian government to finally act. And on the smaller picture here, we can see all these people here have their hands severed because they failed to meet the quota. And it didn't matter if they were women and if they were kids like Nsela's daughter Bowali. If they failed to meet the quota, they still had to pay the price severely by giving up their hands and their feet. Under immense international pressure, Leopold II was forced to sell his property or his personal territory to the Belgian government in 1908. The Congo Free State officially became the Belgian Congo. While this brought an end to the personal rule of Leopold and the most extreme forms of murder, the Belgian government simply replaced the private profit scheme with a state-run colonial system that still focused entirely on extracting mineral wealth, particularly copper and gold, and providing zero political development for the Congolese people. And here we can see the signature of the document that Leopold signed to transfer his power to the Belgian government. And then here we have the flag of the Congo Free State. We're going to shift our focus onto the legacy of imperialism of the Belgian Congo and how it's impacted the history of Congo and the modern crisis of today. So, the rule of the Belgian Congo left a profound legacy of underdevelopment. The Belgians implemented a strict paternalistic policy, so they provided no political education or local government training, ensuring the Congolese people virtually had no political positions. Number two, education was very limited to pretty much basic literacy, specifically designed to train lower level clerical workers, not intellectuals or leaders. They also had a tiny educated elite known as the évolués, and they were often treated as second class. So pretty much the évolués in the eyes of the Belgians were people that really harked onto, the European society and the European, culture, and like pretty much the more European you acted, like the better they saw you, but you're still second class. And number three, the entire economy remained focused on raw export still, neglecting any local industry. This deliberate policy ensured that when independence arrived in 1960, the country was fundamentally incapable of managing its own massive political and economic complexity. And this is something that's still going on today, but it started back during the Belgian reign over the Congo. But as we can infer, independence was always imminent. The transition from the Belgian Congo to the independent Democratic Republic of Congo on June 30th, 1960 was explosive. This event was part of a major historical moment, the Year of Africa, where over a dozen nations across the continent gained independence. The Belgians had pulled out almost overnight, leaving behind a nation without trained administrators or a unified military. The Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba, pictured on the right, was a fervent nationalist, and he demanded a strong unitary government. However, the mineral-rich province of Katanga, which is on the southeast side, immediately attempted to secede, supported by Belgium, which sought to maintain control over copper and gold mines as per usual. When the UN and the Western powers refused to help Lumumba to stop the secession, he desperately turned to the Soviet Union for military and logistical assistance. This move instantly branded him as a communist threat in the context of the Cold War. And this collusion with global interests led to a swift and tragic betrayal. Lumumba was overthrown by a coup by Joseph Desiré Mobutu, captured and executed in January 1961. So barely serving as a president for about 6 months. So, with direct involvement from the Belgian and CIA operatives, he was captured. The final act was barbaric. To ensure no tomb or martyr site remained, Belgian security forces had dissolved his body in acid after shooting him by a fire squad. The only physical fragment ever recovered was a gold tooth, which a Belgian police officer kept as a trophy. And that tooth was actually finally returned and laid to rest in the DRC in 2022, 3 years ago, closing one of the most painful chapters in Congolese history. This act was fatal not just for Lumumba, but for the Congolese democracy and for the future of the Congo in general. These pictures here show Patrice Lumumba. So in the picture on the left, this is him the day he was captured alongside his office. And the picture on the right, the man standing right next to him looking down a little bit, wearing glasses. That is Joseph Desiree Mobutu. He was the one that ended up overthrowing him in a coup and was backed by the U.S. alongside the CIA and Belgian forces. And this was a pretty much one of the most saddest moments in Congolese history and African history in general, as he was influenced. He Patrice Lumumba influenced others to push for independence, not only in Africa but around the world, even in Latin America and also in the United States, where we're also going through the civil rights movement. He also influenced Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and many others to keep on fighting the fight for freedom and civil rights. Now, following Lumumba's assassination, Joseph Mobutu seized power in 1965 in a U.S.-backed coup. He would go on to rule the country for 32 years, establishing one of Africa's most notorious dictatorships. And that's him pictured on the right, wearing a leopard hat. Mobutu renamed the country from the Democratic Republic of Congo to Zaire, and he also pursued a policy of authenticity. But in practice, his rule was defined by a kleptocracy, which is a government by theft. So Mobutu enriched himself and his inner circle by looting the state's coffers and the country's mineral wealth. During his reign, the public infrastructure of the country collapsed, and the economy withered, and political institutions were destroyed. By the time he was overthrown in 1997, Mobutu left behind a hollowed-out, impoverished state and a prime target for regional conflict and exploitation. So Mobutu's collapse in 1997 triggered two conflicts known as the Congo Wars, often called the Africa's World War. And these wars were fueled by two major factors: the power vacuum left by Mobutu's dictatorship and the spillover of the Rwandan genocide in 1994. So, the first Congo War, that started in 1996 and it ended in 1997, saw a coalition led by Rwanda and Uganda to invade the Democratic Republic of Congo, but at the time Zaire, to depose of Mobutu, replacing him with the rebel leader Laurent Kabila. However, Kabila tried to expel his former allies, leading to the Second Congo War, which started in 1998 and ended in 2003. This war drew in 9 African nations and countless armed groups, making it the deadliest conflict since World War II, causing an estimate 5.4 million deaths through violence, disease, and starvation. This massive regional conflict wasn't about ideology. It was an illegal land grab for the Democratic Republic of Congo's resources, which at the time included coltan, gold, and diamonds. This is also a time where it kind of gets personal because my parents ended up being refugees and ended up moving to the United States in this time era because of how bad it was. My dad's from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and my mom's from the Republic of Congo, but the Republic of Congo also had a spillover of the war, of both wars actually, and they also received refugees from the Rwandan genocide too. They also received refugees from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they also had some coup attempts at the time. So this whole Central Africa region was really in a frenzy, and it was really unstable. So many people were misplaced, and people had to do what they had to do. My dad was telling me one time he had to play dead in order to survive, and my mom was telling me that she got shot at, and that she had to cross the Congo River, which is infested with crocodiles and stuff. So like, it was a really hectic time period, and it's just it's just sad to know that like this is an event that's been overlooked historically by many people as the 90s was filled with, and the early 2000s was filled with bigger conflicts such as the Persian Gulf War, and the war in Iraq, and September 11th, and but yeah, it was bad. Now, when we think about war, like in the West, we think about people being 18 years old or like 26 years old, wherever that wherever the age range is for like a typical soldier in the United States. But like once you venture like into Africa, everybody takes up arms. It doesn't matter if you're 30. It doesn't matter if you're five. Like everybody takes up arms. Um, in both wars, there was a abundant amount of child soldiers, and they'd pretty much be, orphans, or their parents would be killed in the war, and they'll be taken by rebels, and they'll be raised to be child soldiers and just kill whatever and whoever. And yeah, it's a growing, it's still something that is being used in modern crisis, not only in Congo but around Africa in general. And it's just sad to see because they already have a bad life as it is, and like now they have to go through killing people, and that's just the way they make their living. Slide here also, I thought this map was pretty interesting. Um, I thought did a good job like showing all the countries that were impacted by the Second Congo War, and these images here show just soldiers in the war, walking. You see this guy has a batch of bananas and smoking. And then this bottom picture here is actually this coffin is actually Laurent Kabila, and the guy in the black is actually his son Joseph Kabila. So Laurent Kabila was assassinated during the Second War by a bodyguard. Many people think that his son Kabila was actually the one that authorized the bodyguard to kill him, but that's just a conspiracy. And Joseph Kabila, the man pictured in the black behind the coffin, ended up being the next president of the United States, and I'm not the United States, the the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he ended up ruling for quite some time, and he also continued, the squandering of the wealth of the country, and also people accuse him of backing the rebels on the east side of the Congo in the modern crisis of what has been going on. And yeah, despite a formal end to the Second Congo War, which probably ended, I think, now 22 years ago, yes, 2003. The conflict never truly stopped, especially in the eastern part of the country. The central problem remains the same. The region is globally important due to its concentration of tech minerals, specifically cobalt and coltan, which are essential for electric devices such as smartphones and vehicle batteries for EVs. The instability is maintained by armed groups fighting for control over these mining areas. The most prominent today is the M23, or in English, the M23 rebel group. which continues to destabilize the region, taking strategic towns such as Goma and Bukavu and Kishanga. Meanwhile, the international reports show massive visible land transformation due to rapid, unregulated expansion of cobalt mining near cities like Kolwezi. The crisis in the East is a modern illustration of the 19th century problem, the DRC's wealth being violently extracted for global consumption. Now, in conclusion, to conclude our journey from the 19th century to the present, the suffering endured by the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo cannot be separated from its history of exploitation. The legacy is defined by three intersecting colonial tools. The colonial roots, which is the foundation of its ongoing crisis, which was laid by King Leopold's rubber terror, which taught the world how to extract maximum wealth while inflicting maximum human cost. 2. The resource curse. The DRC's immense wealth, first slaves, then rubber, then diamonds, copper, and now coltan and cobalt, has become its curse. It is a primary incentive for every war, every coup, and every insurgency. And 3. The ongoing cycle. Today, the M23 or the M23 insurgency and the global demand for tech minerals continue the same cycle. The struggle in the Eastern Congo is a modern illustration of historical legacy that prioritized foreign access to resources over the lives and sovereignty of the Congolese people. Understanding the brutal history of the Congo is crucial to understanding the political and humanitarian crisis of the modern world. We hope that it ends, but realistically, it won't. And yeah, that would pretty much wrap things up, but I would like to go through my reference list. So for the first one, from Amnesty International, I saw an article called Cobalt and Conflict, which pretty much talked about reporting on the link between cobalt mining, human rights abuses, including child labor, and the global supply chain for electric vehicle batteries and smartphones. And it pretty much highlighted the contemporary resource curse in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then for the next one, I used the Casement report by Roger Casement, which came out in 1904 and was direct evidence on the atrocities of what was going on in the Belgian Congo. And it was an original diplomatic report that first provided the irrefutable and detailed evidence of the systematic violence and human rights abuses under King Leopold's rule. And it played a part in leading to international pressure for reformation. The next one, I used King Leopold's Ghost, A Story of Greed, Terror, and Heroism in Colonial Africa by Adam Hochschild. I actually have this book. I got it when I was in ninth grade, I think. And it pretty much, it highlights the atrocities of the Congo Free State. And it also details the history of the rubber regime and the role of King Leopold and the fight for early human rights activists. The next one I used was called Red Rubber, which is the story of the rubber slave trade flourishing on the Congo by E.D. Morel. And it pretty much outlines the economic foundations and brutal reality of the rubber quota system in the Congo. And then the next one I used was The Congo from Leopold to Kabila by Georges Zongola Njatala. Ntalaja. And it pretty much just offers a comprehensive history of the Congo from the African perspective, and showing the history from Leopold all the way to Joseph Kabila. And the next one I used was The Dancing in the Glory of the Monsters, The Collapse of the Congo and the Great War of Africa by Jason Stearns. And this details the collapse of Zaire under Mobutu, and it also highlights the start of the Congo Wars, and also kind of tackles into the Rwandan genocide too. And it highlights how it's been the deadliest conflict since World War II at the time. And then the last one I used was the United Nations Security Council report on the group of experts on the Democratic Republic of Congo. And it pretty much was a report detailing the illegal exploitation of natural resources during the Congo Wars, providing evidence of how neighboring states and international actors funded conflicts by looting minerals. This slide here just references all the images that I used. Some of them were used from the same website, but like I thought they were pretty pretty informative and came from credible sources as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to thank you for taking your time and listening to my presentation, and I hope that you learned something. And maybe you want to look more into the Democratic Republic of Congo. And if you're not interested, like maybe you can look into other countries, because it's not just the Congo going through this. Many other countries have had a history full of atrocities, and like it still overspills into the present day. And as a human being, like we just hope for the best for everybody else, but like at the same time, like you just like just looking into like how the Congo is right now, and like how we're advancing as a society as we get more into like AI, and as we get more into like more of this digital realm. Like Congo is just going to be taking more of a part in that. And it's just good to just have the awareness that like the phones and like the technology devices that we have, like a part of that is paid in blood by innocent people that are just were born in the wrong place. And yeah, I just want to thank you for taking your time, and have a good day. Thank you.